everybody, I'm Pia from Stitches and Scraps.
Today I'm going to show you 3 different ways to start a crochet circle. This is the first method most people learn for starting a circle because it is arguably the easiest. You start by chaining 4 or 6 or some number of chains. I'm going to do 4, and then I'll do 6. And then you join that to create a circle. Okay, now I have my circle, and then you go ahead and work all of your stitches. You chain up and you work all of your stitches into the circle. So that's the easiest, and obviously if you make your starting circle smaller, you will have less of a hole. But regardless of what size you make your starting circle, you're going to end up with a hole in the middle, just like that. Okay, now to fix that, and I'm going to go ahead and fasten this off, what we have now are a series of stitches that are worked around chains. Inside of these stitches are the chains that made up that original loop. Now, in order to close this gap, when I work in the tail, I am going to go ahead and go underneath the legs of all of these stitches. So see, I'm picking up just the legs of the stitches, and I'm following basically where that loop of chains is and going around that same circle. What I'm doing when I do this is I'm basically weaving in a magic circle with my needle after doing the stitches. So when I get back around to the beginning, I can just pull this tight and my hole disappears. Just like that. And then when you weave it in, that will hold that in place just like that. And in fact, I'm going to do that so that we can use this for comparison later. Pull it nice and tight, and then you just weave in your end a little bit. And I would probably weave it in more if it was an actual project, but that will be enough for now. And there we have circle number 1. I referenced a magic circle. One of the most popular ways now to create a crochet circle is by making a magic circle. And the way that I've seen it done, actually, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but the way that made sense for me was you wrap it around 1 or 2 fingers like this. You hold the tail into the palm of your hand, wrap the working yarn up and over 1 or 2 fingers like this, insert your hook into this loop you've created, and pull up this yarn with your hook, which is a little fiddly to do, but basically grab that yarn and pull it out. Okay, now you can drop this and you can go ahead and chain up and work all of your stitches inside your magic loop. Just like that. Okay, and when you're done, you pull the tail and it tightens up that magic loop, just like the tail that we sewed in on the last one. And you can finish your round with a slip stitch. Let's cut this one so we can have our circles for comparison. Pull that magic loop, and if I weave that in, that will be nice and secure, which I'll go ahead and do so we have that for comparison as well. Now, a lot of people don't like the magic loop, and to me, the only reason for that is because they're being taught the magic loop in a different way than they were being taught a slip knot. And why do I say that? Well, a magic loop is actually a slip knot. It's just a slip knot that hasn't been tightened. Let me show you that, okay? If I wrap the yarn around my fingers like this, just like I showed you for the magic loop, and then I go ahead and pull this through. Whoop. See, this is fiddly for me because this is not how I make my slip knots, right? So I go ahead and pull this through. Well, guess what I have here, you guys? This is a slip knot. If I pull this, that's a slip knot, right? Specifically, it's a very specific type of slip knot. It is a slip knot where the knot itself, let me loosen it again. There we go. It's a slip knot where the knot itself is tightened by pulling on the tail. See that? And the loop is tightened by pulling on the working yarn. Okay? You have to be able to tighten the knot by pulling on the tail because you're going to work into that knot and then tighten it so you won't have the working yarn to do that with. But other than that, I mean, it is a slip knot. I can pull it out just like a slip knot. So if you're finding that you're having trouble with the magic loop, it's probably because you're trying to do it a different way than you do slip knots. I do my slip knots like this. I don't do this wrapping around and then pulling through like that. That's not how I make a slip knot. When I make a slip knot, I take my yarn, make a loop like this, twist it so that the tail yarn is on top, reach down and grab the ball yarn and pull it through, right? That's how I make my slip knots. So if I make a slip knot, just like I normally do, okay? This is the loop that I'm going to be working with, and I just don't tighten the slip knot all the way. Tighten it enough that you can hold on to it comfortably, but don't tighten it all the way. Now stick your hook into that working loop, and if I was to tighten it, this would be my working loop on my hook, right? But I'm just not going to tighten it quite all the way. I'm just leaving enough to work into, okay? And now I can work just like I did into the magic loop because a slip knot is a magic loop. So if however you're trying to do magic loops isn't working for you, try doing it the same way you do a slip knot. The only downfall is it has to be a slip knot where the tail tightens the knot and the ball yarn tightens the stitches because otherwise it won't close. So if your slip knot won't close, try turning it around and making it the other way. You know, make sure you're pulling the ball yarn through and not pulling the tail yarn through. But this is the same as our other circle. This is a circle worked into a slip knot, which is a magic loop. Okay, I'm going to set that aside because that's not one of the three I'm showing you. It's the same one as number 2. It is a magic loop. Another method that people use a lot is to simply work into the last of a series of chains. So, for example, if I was doing a single crochet row, I would make 2 chains and then work back into the first chain that I had made. If I was doing a double crochet row, I would do 4 chains. 1, 2, 3, 4, because 3 of those would be for the double crochet, and then I would work my stitches into this farthest chain from the hook. But I'm going to do 2 because I want to do single crochet like all my other circles. So I make my slip knot. I work 2 chains. One is my turning chain and one is going to be the base of my circle. And then into this chain I go ahead and make my 6 stitches. Okay. Now the benefit of this method is that you have that slip knot. It's not quite as fiddly to hold the magic loop open, right? You have that slip knot kind of holding things in place, but the downside is that you still get a little bit of a hole in the middle, and you can close that hole the same way we've done all the others by basically turning it into a magic loop, sewing the tail in around the base of the stitches. But all by itself, you know, it's got a hole just like our first method did. Now, if finding out that a magic circle is really a slip knot kind of blew your mind, I'm about to blow it again. Here I have a slip knot and 5 or 6 chains just because I wanted several chains to work with, and I'm fastening it off so I don't have to worry about my hook. Okay? So let's look at this slip knot because I have a secret. A slip knot is really just a chain. The only difference is it is not connected to a previous stitch. All of these chains are connected to the slip knot or the stitch before them, right? The slip knot is the exact same thing. It's yarn that's pulled through a loop, but it just doesn't have anything on the other end to connect it. But if I open it up, you can see it looks just like the other chains, right? It's still got that same V shape. There's just nothing right here holding it open. If there was something right here holding it open, that would be a chain. So guess what happens if I pull this slip knot out all the way? Okay, if I pull the slip knot out all the way, now this chain has nothing connecting to it, and this chain becomes a slip knot. Okay? So you can always remove the slip knot from your work. In fact, I don't work with slip knots at all. When I make my slip knot, I leave it open and I work back into it when I finish my row. I come across and I put the last stitch back in that slip knot. So leave your knot a little bit loose when you first work it, but then if you take it out in the end, okay, now this slip knot goes away. The next chain, the one that all of these stitches are working into, becomes a slip knot. And I can tighten this because, remember, working into a chain, or working into a slip knot, is a magic loop. So you can make this a magic loop as well, just by taking out the slip knot. So really, all of these methods, you can get that nice closed center. It's a matter of what appeals to you more. Do you want to work a big circle of chains and then sew the center shut? Or do you want to work into a magic loop? Or do you want to work, do you want that slip knot holding that last chain in place for you, work into that and then remove the slip knot? All of those are perfectly acceptable methods. These two, the end result is identical. Okay, if you remove the slip knot, this is the same as this. Okay, this one is different because even though we sewed in the magic circle, you still have that ring of chains inside of there. And you can see these two are the same yarn. And you can see that this one, at least I hope you can see, this one is thicker, it's puffier than this one. It's also stronger. So this is a great option. That circle of chains is a great option if you're making like a basket or something where it's going to have a lot of pressure put on it, or it's going to get a lot of wear and tear. If you're doing buttons, this is a good option. But otherwise, I like the magic circle or magic loop or magic ring, however you want to call it, and this version. And what I do, because of that trick with the slip knots, like I said, I never really work with slip knots at all. So if I was going to make a circle, I would do, or I never really close slip knots. I shouldn't say I work with slip knots, don't work with slip knots, because you are still making a slip knot. I just don't close it. So what I do is that magic loop, but the version where I'm making my slip knot, putting it on my hook. See, that's my slip knot, it's just loose. And then I'm going ahead and working into all of those, which is the same. It looks like one chain, two chains, right? I chain two, and now I'm working 6 single crochet into that first chain. So however you want to look at it, it's all kind of the same thing. It's an open slip knot that you work your stitches into, and then you pull it closed. So those are some different ways that aren't really all that different to start a crocheted circle. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, or leave me a comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel for more great videos. Thanks for watching!